Hi everyone, this is Rama Mamuaya from Dailysocial. Welcome to our first, I don't know what we call this, but this is a very casual discussion that we're having about the industry. And I think one of the topic that we're going to discuss tonight is quite an awkward one. Lots of people like, Rama, that's a very awkward question. So for you who doesn't know, let me share a presentation just a little bit. So a few days ago, I posted a question. As you can see here, I posted this question on Twitter, Instagram, and in LinkedIn. And the one that I have on LinkedIn just blew up, and a lot of people, participated in the poll, which is very interesting. And some people also left very positive comments, I think, in a good way. Kevin, the CEO of Gojek, knowing that we're actually mentioning his company, he also left a comment, for this result. So basically, I was discussing with a few friends about, to tell you a bit of a background on why I asked this question is, I heard a lot of some friends that are complaining basically about Gojek extra Traveloka, they're very expensive, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, well, is it really important from an investor perspective? Also, all the ex Gojek, ex Traveloka, ex Grab, ex Unicorn, ex Uber, blah blah blah, they seem to get a lot of fundings from investors. And I was wondering whether being an ex something is actually really help you kind of skew the perspective a little bit in your for your benefit, of course. And the answer is quite, the response is quite interesting from the poll. So 24%, as per what date is it? The June 12th, 7 p.m. The answer is 24% yes, it does help you. 41% said no, I don't care what your ex is, and 35% is neutral. We have almost 2,000 people voting already, so I think it's a pretty good representative, number of the industry. And I have a few comments from people leaving comments on the thread that I think is also very interesting, and I think it's worthy to share as well. A good friend of mine, he left a comment. From an engineering perspective, being X something really gives you a perspective of the scale that you deal with in your previous experience. And again, this is from technology, engineering perspective. If you're working with a unicorn, that's the scale that you work in. If you're in a very small startup, the size of the technology stack is going to be different, which I think also a very good point as well. And some people also having worked with ex Google and ex Gojek, at the end of the day, you have to take a grain of salt basically before you decide anything. And this is a pretty crazy comment, very extreme, but I think it's very interesting. And I think some of the people in the industry kind of feel this way as well. I know a few people that close to me said basically the same thing, that people with a unicorn background is overpaid. The skill is not worthy, the asking salary. And because they're ex unicorn, they're rather cocky about it, which is, it really doesn't help you as a professional when you're hiring or looking for funding. Also, this is a very good comment as well. Just writing an X something without elaborating your past role seems meaningless to recruiters. So today we have three amazing people, good friends of mine, Sebastian, Heriyadi, and Edward, that will be discussing with us. So before we start, right, I want to start with Sebastian. So Sebastian,
Yes,
what's your position on this?
Right. I'm definitely against it, right? I'm in a no corner, right? I don't think having an X Gojek or X unicorn or whatever, it doesn't really matter in whether or not you are valuable to a company or not. I think of all the three people that is in this recording today, right? I think I probably represent a smaller startup, right? We have the smaller budget as well, and we tend to avoid people who are X unicorn because they are more expensive, and sometimes like what the post said, the skills doesn't really justify their salary. So yeah, I'm definitely against that. I don't think it matters. I think it goes down to whether or not the person has the skills, whether or not the person can prove themselves to be able to work and to be able to adjust to your company's culture, versus having an X unicorn behind their name.
Interesting. Second of all, we have Heriyadi, ex Microsoft. So what is your stance?
For me, it's help to separate the stack. For some position, you can get like 50 in the worst. I got 150 CV to
Right.
sort just for 3 position. So if in the end you have to separate yourself from others, right? So the easiest way, you look if there differentiate, there's something pop up in the CV for just the first screening. So if they put the headline as X something, it's help. Not always in positive way, I have to say.
Oh, interesting.
When they say X unicorn, at that time, I just see, okay, use one definitely won't be match my
Budget.
so it go to the left. I won't follow up. But
Right.
in other case, when working for a consultant, we're looking for specific skill set. So I definitely looking from other ex-consultant. So ex-consultant in there will be help for me. Also in corporate, working for, like I say, I ex-Microsoft, working for multinational company has different skill set mostly compared to startup. And adjusting yourself in multinational company, especially IT, in my experience, not easy. So if I see the resume come from another IT multinational company, it help easier for me to become in the positive stacks. Not totally it make my decision to hire or not, but at least help them to move to the positive stack to go to the next screening. That's for me.
So ex Microsoft, yes. Ex McKinsey, yes. Ex Unicorn, overpaid.
Yes.
Interesting. And we also have Edward Chamdani, one of the most prolific investor in Indonesia. Edward,
Yes.
what is your stance?
Well, okay. I think we need to deepen the questions. Yeah, I mean, if we generalize based on your questions, my answer will be yes. Yeah, but of course, it's conditional to the persons, like Sebastian mentioned about the size of the company, and Heriyadi mentioned about the background, whether it's in IT or like in Gojek, So I think for me, saying yes is more of the exposure, the experience, whether the position that I'm looking for, really fit to the profile of the company that they used to work in. So myself used to be working for IBM Indonesia, right? And I felt that being in multinational company helps because you have the exposure of being in a big organization. So like Heriyadi also, he used to work for Microsoft, right? I think in bigger organization, you have the exposure of working in a matrix organization, where in a small company, usually it's difficult for you to experience those kind of the exposure. Yeah? So it helps if what I'm looking for is a position where I know the company will grow, and I think those kind of exposure will help. Yeah, that's my stand.
Interesting. So let's go back to Sebastian. So, you mentioned about budget, and I think it's very true. It's a very good, strong point as well, because not a lot of companies here in Indonesia can afford, 100K a year employee, or at least in the middle level. Yeah. So if you have the budget, say you receive $10 million in seed funding, very easily, for example, and you are supposed to recruit your first level people, the leadership team. Would you consider X something as one of your primary, at least again, like Heriyadi said, when you announce the funding on TechCrunch, Daily Social, Deal Street Asia, blah blah blah, the next day you'll have like 1,000 CVs sent to you via email, and you have a stack this high, and you have to, I think I read a joke somewhere that usually it just take half and then throw it away. These guys are unlucky, and I don't want to hire unlucky people, right? But this is probably a little bit more sophisticated than that. So would you consider using X something in their headline as a way to take the first filter, or first choice, before you deep down further?
Right. Well, definitely. What I can say is that it depends on the role that I'm looking for, right? For example, if I'm looking for someone who is a system admin, for example, I will definitely look at whether or not this person has a background in managing a scaled infrastructure, right? So if I'm looking for someone who has a background in FMCG, I will definitely look at companies that are like Procter & Gamble or Unilever and things like that. Right, so experience matters, definitely. The headline matters, right, as well. But then when it comes to the substance, when it comes to the core skills that the person possesses, right, it doesn't really matter whether or not you are an X something, right. Specific to the role, right. If let's say you're looking for a lead scientist, you're looking for a data scientist, you're looking for a specific logistics manager or logistics hero, right, who has handled multiple infrastructures, right, it probably makes sense. But if let's say you're a startup that's just looking for someone that makes up your team, sometimes it doesn't really matter, because what works is basically how this person is actually able to complement your entire team, versus on rather having P&G culture or even Unilever culture.
Right.
As a baggage, because those are very different. So yeah, I mean, I still stand by that. It helps, right? But then it doesn't really matter as well. Even I have $10 million right now, I need to hire a superstar. It still boils down to whether or not this person fits the bill, right? Whether or not this person fits the role that you're looking for, rather than having an X unicorn behind it.
Right. Thank you very much. Harry, when it comes to X multinational companies, a few stereotyping or generalization will come to mind associated with that particular brand. You're laughing, but I think it's true. When you're talking about a certain company A, like, it's definitely expensive. Company B is like, overpaid. Oh, this is something. There's always that kind of generalization that may or may not be true, depending on each case. I think it's going to be different. You cannot really generalize, but people will generalize.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So that's happened. Startup is booming in Indonesia for the last few years, right? And some like ex-Microsoft moved to startup. Some success, some not. Because in the end, like Sebastian say, it depends on the people. In working for Microsoft, you already have structure, you have everything being settled, the role is clear and everything. Working for startup is like juggling here and there, everything which in Microsoft already planned for the next year, probably for the next 3 years. In startup, you can change every month. Okay, we're doing this. It didn't work. Next month we're gonna change. Because yes, in the end it's depend on the people. It's just help for the first step. I won't make my decision solely based on that.
But what if like if you're working at a very large unicorn company or multinational companies, you're one out of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 employees worldwide. Like how do you consider like someone that has a very significant role there? Like, in a lot of companies, I'm sorry, but VPs means nothing. You know what I'm saying? Right? I think it's very true. A lot of titles, like it sounds significant, like, oh, I'm a VP of something, but that doesn't necessarily say anything about their impact. Maybe their role, yes, but their impact to the company.
Right. In the end, like certain company has certain reputation. The most easiest and I think everyone understand that is banker. The best goal for banker is ex-Citibank.
Right.
So that's certain company has certain base company culture which can help in certain way or probably against in another role. So for me, it's help. It's just like you say, I don't know what's the term in Indonesia, but in US, you want to hire someone from Ivy League university, or you just hire from any university. So it's more like that. It won't be make my final decision, but it can help screening first lah for me. So in the end, I will go
on this.
Yes, sure.
In a way, I agree with Heriyadi. I mean, certain company, they have certain specialization. So if I were to recruit like a product guy, this is something that we found during the interview of an ex-Traveloka. And the title usually is a product specialist, or product development guy, or girl. And they usually are quite savvy in being a product development person in any organization, because somehow I think Traveloka, Ferry and Daryanto, long time ago, when they started the company, they really dig into the user experience of Traveloka.
And the product culture,
Yeah, the product culture. So the evolution of these people, in that organization, make them the specialists, and they know the process. So it really helps when they move to another company and position them in the product development. It helps. Yeah. So like Citibankers, IBMers, they have their certain specialization. In this era, internet era, is I think quite similar. We need to look into their specialization.
Yes, that's basically what I said earlier, right? I mean, it depends on the role that you're looking for. If you're looking for a data scientist, a very specific and very technical role, having an ex-Citibanker or an ex-Traveloka, it makes sense, right? But if let's say you're just looking for someone to fill up your team, a generalist, operations guy, probably doesn't really make sense to have someone that has an X something with a very high salary. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cool. So now I'm gonna dig deeper in terms of funding, startups, entrepreneurs, and funding. So, what do you think when it comes to funding decision? How do you play that particular role of interest? Again, I'm sure you receive, 100, 200 pitch decks a day, and then how do you weed out the first layer of selection for the companies that you want to look further, or you want to talk to the founder? Does that play into
Okay.
one of the factors?
If the decision is to look for the founders, being an ex-unicorn or ex big company in IT or internet, it helps a bit, but I think what we are looking for is more the exposure in the investment world. Yeah, I mean, if the founder knows the investment, M&A, it helps a lot, because the view of the or perspective of the founder when they talk to the investors, usually the frequency is much better. It's easier for us to understand, and also they understand their our language. Yeah.
Right.
So usually the founders that is an ex McKinsey, ex BCG, KPMG, it helps. Yeah.
Auto funding.
Sorry.
Auto funding. Here's $5 million. Take my money.
Yeah. But of course, not everyone. Yeah, not everyone. We need to look into their transformation into the experience in a startup development, and also exposure in being one of the employee in a startup also. Yeah.
So we've talked about a very generalized version of this discussion, but I want to be more specific towards Indonesia today, with Indonesian unicorns, with Indonesian multinational companies that are in Indonesia. So I think we can start from Sebastian, and then Heriyadi, and then Pak Ed. This question that I asked in the poll, let's make it laser focused in Indonesian perspective. What do you think about Indonesian unicorn? I think if they need to fix something, I know a lot of people that said that, in general, if you got accepted to work at one of the unicorns in Indonesia, generally you are better than most. If you take the average score of people who work at the Indonesian unicorn, and then you take the average score of people who've worked in a non-unicorn, the first group would be, better in average.
Right. In a sense, you're right there. But then we need to understand as well a few things that we need to take into consideration, right? The first thing is whether or not how long has the person been with that unicorn, right? So, as you know, that Indonesia has quite a revolving door policy for most of the startups, right? So
exactly.
Come in for like a few months and then they just leave, right? So if let's say you work for a unicorn for 1 or 2 months or 3 months, for example, right? You don't really understand the workings of the unicorn, right?
But that's enough for you to add that X something, right? I've worked there for 3 months.
Right. Yes and no, right? Yes and no, because it really depends on where you go next as well, right? So if let's say you go from one unicorn to the next unicorn, then
right,
it makes sense, right? Because the unicorn probably has all the tools and all the infrastructures, all the support systems that is needed for you to actually succeed. But if let's say you come from a unicorn and then you go to a startup that is brand new, startup who just got a $10 million investment, for example, right? Who doesn't have any systems yet, who doesn't have any SOPs yet, right? So you might struggle, you see, because like for example, myself, I was an ex Procter & Gamble as well. It's a huge company. It's a hundreds of years, I think 100 over years company. They have very established processes. They have very established networks. They have very established tools and things that they do, right? But then when you're inside there, you work like clockwork, right? You go from A to B to C to D to E to F. If you're in an agile and development infrastructure, right, you are able to actually develop things very quickly and everything flows, right? But if let's say you move this person, this ex-unicorn person, to a startup that is brand new, right? You might get a shock, right? So what happened to the SOPs? What happened to the infrastructures? Why are we still using Excel to actually manage everything? Why are we writing notes and things like that? So these are the things that you need to consider. Let's say you like you say in Indonesia context, right, where a lot of the workers don't really stay for very long as well. Probably.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who has any other opinions on this.
Harry, what do you think? In Indonesia, for you who are not from Indonesia, you have to work at least 3 months as a probational, and then after that you'll either have to be not continued or you have to be permanent, right, in Indonesia. And the 4th month you're a permanent employee already. You have earned the right to add that X something, and then without learning anything or without any significant impact, because it's such a huge company. If my colleague did something amazing and that product or that feature took off, or we as a team achieved something, I was part of that team. I didn't do anything, but I've earned the right to add that, right? And I can claim that, and that's the thing, right? With big companies. What do you think?
So first, like I told you, I'm using for the screening. Or deep down, I never hire anyone who want to move before 1 year in the previous company.
Interesting.
So that's basically big no-no for me.
If someone moved less than a year?
Yes, and already want to move, I never, until now, I never. Because like Sebastian say, well, that's what my example. Coming from Microsoft, you have established system and everything. Some move to startup, some can adapt and bring those established system and do it in the startup. Some totally just cannot confirm and okay, I work it there, I can use it here. There's the system work the system, like Sebastian said. So it's again very depending on the people. And if you say unicorn Indonesia, till now I interview some from ex-unicorn. I see only one company has a very good established system for hiring from those unicorn. I won't say the name, but
okay. I was just about to ask you. Do you want to say?
No.
That's too bad.
I don't want to say, but there's only one company has a good. So you can see.
So I'm assuming it's not
standard.
I assume it's not Blibli. I'm just kidding. Don't answer that. You'll get into trouble.
I mean, it's different. Blibli has their system, which is for more established company than startup.
I see.
Because probably because we are part of the big group and those standard already on the big group.
Yeah. Awesome. Pedro, do you wanna add into that?
Yeah. I think in it's relevant to Sebastian comment and also Heriyadi. Even if I mention about the Citibank, IBM, everyone in a management trainee position, they need to know the whole organization structure, and they need to know all the silos of these jobs, So I think relates to Heriyadi's comment about if the guy is only less than a year, usually the exposure of multi tasks, division, departments among this organization is not complete. So it defies the benefit of being in a big organization. I bet like Sebastian, he was in PNG. He must be moving around different tasks, departments. So those exposure will be beneficial when he starts his own company. And I think if we look into the CV of ex-unicorn, if he just work for there for 6 months or 1 year, and then is not moving around in different departments, we need to be careful on that. unless it's very specific, like I mentioned on Traveloka, the specialist of product development, and then the position that we are looking for is similar to that. That will be different.
I think it's very important, right? For example, I think as a closing argument, right, I would like to say, right, let's imagine if, let's say, you guys are into soccer, right, for example, football, right, let's imagine like Messi, right, Lionel Messi. He's a very good player in Barcelona, right? The reason why he's so good in Barcelona is because Barcelona has a lot of support structures to support him, right? We have they have a lot of midfielders, strikers that actually can complement his skills, right? But if, let's say, you move this Messi into another club, right,
or another country, like China.
Well, it could be China, right?
Chinese are recruiting like crazy, right? Yeah.
But let's just imagine this Messi guy, right? You take him out from Barcelona, you move it to an obscure team somewhere in the world, right? Who doesn't have the support structure that can supply him with really good balls, really good plays, right? Strategies and everything. I don't think he'll do as well. So that goes back to whether or not, let's say you have a team, right? Focus on building a very good team rather than getting one or two superstars, right? Because one or two superstars will not matter if you have a very bad team, right? So if, let's say, you have very limited budget, right? Spread it out, build a really good team, like what Leicester did a few years back when they won the Premier League.
Unsuspectedly.
Unexpectedly.
Out of nowhere.
So yeah, I think teamwork matters more than one or two guys who are actually ex-unicorn, who is commanding a very high salary but actually not contributing to the team. Yeah, so that's probably my closing argument.
Pak Heriyadi, closing remarks maybe from a Liverpool kind of standpoint?
Yes, I agree with Sebastian. I mean, well, Liverpool for the past few years didn't actually have a big superstar. The club made a system, right? And he recruit people who fit the system.
Right.
Like Sebastian say, well, Messi going there is, I'm not sure he's the right guy because he's very individualist player, which is different with the Liverpool system. So that's no argument there. In the end, as manager, you cannot hire 11 superstar. Doesn't matter how much money do you have, because another you have to see is their superstar. They usually also have big ego, or like the one of become cocky.
Right.
Maybe you need one or two. It helps sometimes. Have ambition is not bad, but if you have 11 as manager, then you're gonna
kill yourself.
Yeah.
Pak Ed, you wanna?
I think yes. My closing remark. I just adding to Heriyadi and Sebastian, but I think we need to look into also on the industry that we want to position them once we recruit. For example, right now I'm focusing more on the upstream agriculture. Right? Well, having those unicorn, I think there are a lot of gaps. If we look into the industry itself, the complexity and also the demand, the requirement, of those. That the one that we recruit, that they need to visit remote places and then spend the time there probably for 2 to 3 months in remote places. I don't think they're able to cope with that. So I think some industry may not fit to certain position that if we recruit from ex-unicorn. But if we position them for growth, usually it fits. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all your closing remarks. Thank you so much for your opinions. Again, there's no winners and losers here. Everyone is a valid opinion, and also I think we all agree that we share the same vision for Indonesia's digital industry. We want to make it to move forward and fly, as high as possible. Let's try to catch up with US, right? Now, they're busy with COVID now, so let's focus to surpass them one of these days, right? So again, thank you so much for your time, and we'll continue with our next awkward question webinars. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rama.